Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the National Intel Report. I'm your host, John Stadtmiller, with you on this Tuesday, 26 November 2013. And 4 days ago, in some 50 years, there was a president that came down to Dallas and was killed November 22nd, 1963. What I didn't know is that Gerald Celente knew John Connally, and that in fact he and his wife, Connally and his wife, went to the book depository. And how do I know that? Well, I got photographic proof. A younger, dapper Gerald Celente. Good afternoon, Mr. Celente. Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Buonasera, almost.
I appreciate you coming on the program. It's too bad that we don't commemorate more anniversaries. That means I can get you on the network even more.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming up here. We're a couple of days late with this, but November 22nd, 1963. There are two schools of thought about Mr. Kennedy. One, that he was not one of the insiders, and that, in fact, he was doing things working against the globalist interest. The other was that, well, he was just one of the boys, and he was like the early Bill Clinton of his time. I was 10 years old, and I think people can remember where they were at. I was 10 years old. I was in the 5th grade, and I can remember Mr. Druckenmiller, the school principal, coming over the intercom telling us that President Kennedy was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. Gerald, this is a huge thing. I don't know where you want to go with this, but please just lead the band.
Well, I could start it with, actually, when I was 13 years old. And I grew up in Yonkers in the Bronx. And I went to Catholic school, and so I was Kennedy was running. And, of course, with the Catholic Church, the Catholic schools, it was a big thing. It was going to be the first Catholic president. And so my friends and I jumped on a bus, and we went down to Getty Square in Yonkers, Larkin Plaza, right in front of the train station. In those days, it was the Penn Central station. And Kennedy was campaigning there. And as a little kid, as his car pulled away, I ran after the car, and I was really fast. I was this little jet. And I reached over the back of the trunk, and I touched it. He put it out of his hand, and I touched his hand. And who would have known, 30 years after that, I got a call from John Connally. And he had read my book. Of course, he was the former governor of Texas that took the bullet in the back, sitting in front of Kennedy. And Connally wanted to meet me. It was August 25th, 1992. And it was just before the presidential election.
Now, back up here, Gerald. Why did he call for a meeting with you?
I had written the book Trend Tracking back in 1989. And in that book, I had written that there was a strong desire for a new third party in America. And for some strange reason, I mentioned Ross Perot's name. You have to go back. When I wrote the book, actually, in 88, it didn't get published till 89. Nobody knew who the Ross Perot was. I had been following this guy from time to time, but I knew there was a real desire for a third party. So Connally wanted to know how I figured that out. And I was introduced to him by a fellow by the name of John J. Hooker. And actually, it is the hooker that goes back to how the women got the prostitutes got their name hookers, because it was his great uncle who was the John Hooker during the Civil War that brought those camp girls around. And he was the guy that put Ross Perot on Larry King's show, and where Ross Perot announced he was going to run for president. So that's how I met Connally, because he gave Connally my book Trend Tracking. So I flew to Dallas, and I had lunch with Connally at the Anatole Hotel, along with Hooker. And actually, there was another fellow there that was doing polling work for Perot, Pat Cadell, who was made his name doing polling for Carter. And Larry King's girlfriend was there too, Rama Fox. And again, it was Hooker that put Perot on Larry King. So we're having lunch, and John, the first emotion that went over me during lunch was embarrassment. I felt really embarrassed about myself for prejudging Connally. I mean, I only knew him from the media, and I didn't like him. But, I figured, what the heck, this is the guy, he wants to meet me in Dallas, and he's the guy, that was not only the governor of Texas, but the former Treasury Secretary under Reagan. And as these other people are talking, and you can see by that photo, I'm clearly not one of the boys. I'm cutting off everybody else as they're talking. They were interrupting Connally because I wanted to hear everything that he had to say. Everything was making such perfect sense to me, and he was so eloquent in his speech. So we finished lunch, and John J. Hooker bellows out, "Well, John," speaking to Connally, "the limousine's outside waiting for us." And we all pile into the limousine. He goes, gets his wife, Nellie, and we're parked out in front of the book depository. Now, John, this is their first time back since the assassination. They didn't even go there when they made the place a museum. And I'm sitting there across from him. His wife, Nellie, and Rama Fox are flanking him, and Hooker and Cadell to my left and right. And when you see the photograph of that window, that's the side of the book depository. We're parked in front. And he begins the conversation, Connally does, by saying that he heard a gunshot. He said, "I know it was a gunshot because I've been hunting since I'm a little boy." And I turned to my right. Now, the way we were parked, to his right would have been the grassy knoll. When you listen to the tape of him right after the assassination, he said he looked to his left. That's not what he said that day. Because he then said he showed how he was scrunched up in the jump seat of the limousine. They weren't like they are today. Those us old enough to remember those jump seats that went down. And he showed how he was scrunched up wearing a dark blue suit, holding his Stetson hat on his knee. And he said, "I looked over to my left, and there were brains on my shoulder." He said, "I know there were brains because my daddy was a butcher." And then he goes on to say how he made two clenched fists. And he's right across from me. And he said, "I felt like there was a pounding on my back." And that's when the bullet came ripping through his back, through his chest, through his hand, through his knee, and out. And Nellie, of course, throws herself on top of him as he goes flying forward. And this is, again, the story that he said and he told. And that was that he said it took us about 10 or 12 minutes to get to Parkland. And remember, Nellie, his hand is on his chest. He's laid over, and she's laying on top of him.
Okay, hold that thought right there. We've got to go to break. My guest today is Gerald Celente, and we're commemorating the 50th anniversary of JFK.
World-renowned physician and stem cell expert Dr. David Steenblock, D.O., and his research staff have spent years developing all-natural formulations that support the body's own stem cell production and mobilization system. An everyday stem cell supplement, creating the birth of StemGevity. StemGevity stem cell mobilization formula is for use by men, women, and children of all ages to support your body's stem cell system naturally, quickly, and safely. StemGevity helps support your heart and circulatory system, bones and joints, liver, skin, brain, and much more. Order your bottle now at StemGevity.com today. That's StemGevity, StemGevity.com. Or call now toll-free, 800-300-1063. Buy 2 bottles and receive a 3rd bottle free by mentioning RBN. Anyone who wants to get healthy needs StemGevity. Call 800-300-1063 today.
There are many water filters to choose from, but there is only one system that is consistently customer rated 5 stars as the #1 system for effective filtration of fluoride, radiation, drug residues, heavy metals, a wide range of radioisotopes, and more. Introducing the Pure Effect Ultra, the next generation water filter that also raises alkaline pH, improves antioxidant potential, and has advanced anti-radiation technology, all while using no electricity. Sold worldwide, it provides virtually instant clean water on demand. It is not made in China, and the shipping is free to all 50 states. Buy your Pure Effect Ultra today by visiting PureEffectFilters.com or call 888-891-4821. Again, that's 888-891-4821 or visit PureEffectFilters.com.
Herbal Healer Spring Sale. 500 parts per million colloidal silver, all sizes. COQ10 with hawthorn, glucosamine chondroitin, sea cucumber, colloidal minerals, Superfam and Super Male Plaques, Colon Enhancer, our top-selling liquid, Cal Mag Vitamin D, MSM Sulfur Capsules, and Elderberry Power Capsules. We also offer certificate correspondence courses in natural medicine. Free memberships and free online newsletters also available at herbalhealer.com. Herbal Healer has been serving the natural medicine industry for 25 years. This is a company you can count on. Visit herbalhealer.com today. herbalhealer.com. That's herbalhealer.com.
Get ready for Real Talk Radio. You're listening to the National Intel Report with your host, John Stadtmiller.
We are back talking with Gerald Celente. Gerald, I want to throw something in here. The evidence, I've looked at this like most people have, and there are just glaring questions about the assassination of Kennedy. And apparently, inside job, this could not have been done. I mean, even the way the Secret Service acted. And we've all seen the Zapruder film about 100 million times. And the second shot, when Kennedy's head goes back and half of his head explodes, you can see Jackie Kennedy apparently trying to get out of the seat and crawl on the back of the limo. Well, there were supposed to be Secret Service men on the rear of that limousine, and there was not. And what the Secret Service agents said that Jackie was doing was trying to retrieve, and why people do the things that they do in moment of crisis, how they react. It sometimes makes no sense whatsoever. But according to the Secret Service agent, she was trying to retrieve a portion of the president's skull that landed on the trunk lid of the limousine.
Yeah, again, that we didn't really get into any of that in my meeting with him. As I was saying, what happened is that they said they got to Parkland in about 10 or 12 minutes, and usually it was a 20-minute ride. And ironically, or maybe not, as life goes, as the motorcade comes screaming into Parkland, a doctor sees this who was on break and goes running down to the emergency room. And the doctor happened to be a thoracic surgeon, and that's the one that worked on Connally. So here this guy has his lung blown open. And by the way, according to Connally, the reason he didn't suffocate to death is because he was pushed over, his wife was on top of him, and his hand was over the wound, compressing it, or else he would have suffocated. So as we get out of the car, after he tells the story, we got out, and Rama Fox had a Polaroid camera. She took those photos, the ones that I'm in. And we get back in the car, and I'm sitting across from him, and I realized what was going on here, and that was that he was a dying man. He died in June. And the reason I knew it is because he had his lung condition was acting up severely, and they had him on heavy doses of prednisone. And I watched my father, may his soul rest in peace, die of asbestos poisoning from working in the shipyards, and they had his lungs were all blown out, and they had him on heavy doses of prednisone. So on Connally's hands were these big purple splotches like I saw on my dad. And if you see that photo, you can see he's all hunched over, Connally is. And he was a tall, stately man, as was my father. So as we're walking back into the Anatole Hotel, Connally stops, and he looks at me, and he said, I read your book, Trend Tracking. He said, it's a fine piece of work, and I know your heart's in the right place, but you don't have a clue what's going on in government, and neither do the American people, because if they did, there'd be a revolution in this country. And we looked at each other, and he just walked to the elevator, and we went back up to his suite, and talked a bit, more, basic conversation, what's going on here and there, talking about the campaign. And you could see he was a very saddened man of what happened to this country. And remember, this guy was the Treasury Secretary under Nixon when the United States was taken off the gold standard. Mm. And he was also the guy that told Nixon that the game was up, to pack up his bags. It was over. And he's telling me that if the people knew what was going on in government, there'd be a revolution in this country.
Did he indicate at any point? I know what it's. I don't know what it's like to be in high government office, but I know what it's like to demand as a citizen that our representatives and our government respond in a fashion that we would think would be okay. In other words, honest men. Did Connally himself offer any reason why, if he was Treasury Secretary under Dick Nixon, and Nixon slammed the gold window back in 1971? Right. Did he offer anything that he had talked to anybody, that he had tried to stop this? Because I know exactly what he was saying. I knew.
No. His message was that the levels of corruption in the government, that we're not even close to being what we call a democracy. And again, this is at a time that you have to put it into context. Go pick up last week's Financial Times. I think it was Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And there's a whole big story about how the Republican Democratic candidates are now all talking about the income inequality that is really destroying America's middle class. If you said that back in 1992, you would be called a commie or a Marxist. If you talked about how inept and incompetent the government is, we just within a year, we went through a fiscal cliff, a government shutdown, a debt ceiling, and sequestering, pulling back on Syria after the president threatens. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm just saying what the situations are. And looking at the incompetence and ineptness of coming out of Washington, and talking about a revolution back then at a time when it's just before the digital revolution, the country's still optimistic, the Cold War is over. And now, 20 years later, you can see that everything that Connally was saying, now the people can see it, the people that care, of course. They can see why this country would have a revolution. And, of course, I want to make this clear because I know that everyone out there that is listening to us, that have no damn right to, I want a peaceful revolution. I'm not for violence. And I want a spiritual, in the sense, not a religious or a New Age kind of thing, but spiritual, the spiritual in the mind, and morality and intellect.
Let's just call it a spirited restoration. How's that?
Fine.
Okay.
So, and by the way, I'm really, I went out the other night. I'm in Colonial Kingston here, and Woodstock is about 15, 20 minutes from here. And last Saturday night, my friend that has WDST Radio, Woodstock, they had the Preservation Hall Jazz Band there. And I went to Bearsville Theater to go watch it. And on the trip up there, Route 28, lined with the pigs. The pig patrols are out everywhere. I'm tired of these militarization of this country with these Gestapo cops. They stop you for every damn thing that you do. You don't have that light over your license plate on just right.
Yep.
You don't have your turn signal on. Who the hell do these guys think they are? These tough guys that have enough armament on them to go through the Battle of the Bulge unscathed, that'll blow away a 13-year-old kid with a toy gun.
I'll tell you exactly who they are, Gerald. And this is the fault of our Congress for doing this, for they have made this an administrative state. There are no rules anymore. Gone is the restraint of the Constitution on these creatures. They have been given a green light to do or try or attempt to do anything they can damn well get away with.
They disgust me. I'm tired of them.
Yeah, me too.
I got stopped for going over a double white line where the crosswalk was. My tires were on the front of the line, and some damn state trooper pulls me over. What kind of crap is this? What kind of little boy? These tough guys. I can't stand them.
They have no honor, Gerald. We need to remind them that they don't. Let's take this break. We'll be back in 3.
They came and took it all away.
Do you love America? Do you support the right to bear arms? Do you have an opinion on the current immigration issue? Do you believe in the dollar? You have a voice. You have an opinion. Let it be heard. Go to AmericanFreedomSurvey.com right now and make your voice count. Do you like your rights taken away for the so-called sake of public safety? Do you want to repeal Obamacare? Go to AmericanFreedomSurvey.com today and fight back. All you have to do is fill out a short survey and you're done. Simple, easy, fast. For your time, you get entered to win free gold and silver. That's right. Get gold and silver free by filling out this short survey that enters you to win. AmericanFreedomSurvey.com. Go to AmericanFreedomSurvey.com today. That's AmericanFreedomSurvey.com. You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
John Stadtmiller here. Sometimes in life you get lucky. Well, today is your lucky day. Our sponsor, AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, have just announced their biggest savings yet on their 1-month food supply by Linden Farms. This great 1-month pack includes over 360 servings based on 2,000 calories per day. While supplies last, you'll get 1 free month of long-term emergency food entrees when you buy 3. This is a massive savings of $600 on a 4-month supply. Again, AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com is giving you buy 3 months, get an additional 1 month of food free. This is a great deal. Act fast. The site again is AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com or call them directly at 818-720-0759, 818-720-0759. Let them know John sent you. Do it today. AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Veteran owned and operated.
Are you prepared? Are you ready? You should be. CampingSurvival.com is your source for camping supplies, survival gear, and survival food. Whether you are an emergency preparedness-minded individual interested in MRE, a hardcore hiker in need of paracord, a water filter system and fire piston, or you just need a basic first aid kit or emergency kit for the family, CampingSurvival.com is the right place. Call CampingSurvival.com today, toll free at 800-537-1339. CampingSurvival.com. It's not about the end of the world. It's not about surviving a hypothetical plane crash. It's about the satisfaction you get knowing you can take care of yourself and or your family in any situation, anytime, anywhere. Visit CampingSurvival.com now and receive 5% off any purchase with the code FREEDOM. CampingSurvival.com.
I'm Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America, and I want to invite you to join the Second Amendment movement with Gun Owners of America, the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington. Take action by becoming a GOA member today by going to gunowners.org. Gun owners members receive the GOA newsletter, fact sheets, alerts, certificates, and more. But there's more to joining GOA than just a list of member benefits. The united voice of GOA members has been successful in defeating restrictive legislation designed to disarm our population. GOA has helped to get strong constitutional members of Congress like Senator Ted Cruz elected. And with your help, GOA will continue to successfully defend the rights of gun owners in the courts. Participate in our efforts to restore and preserve the nation's right to keep and bear arms. All contributions to our lobbying efforts are used exclusively to support or oppose firearms legislation. Join online at gunowners.org.
We are back with Gerald Celente talking about JFK. I think I said this last Tuesday when you were on with me, Gerald, that I had an opportunity some 17, 18 years ago to talk to Marina Oswald for about 25, 30 minutes. And the first thing out of my mouth was the question, did your husband, Lee Harvey, kill Kennedy? And she shook her head no. Her explanation to me was that she was told what to say at the press conferences down in Dallas. She barely spoke English. She was instructed what to say. But they made it perfectly clear through an interpreter that she understood if she did not tote the FBI line, that she would be deported, at best deported. And the inference was made that that's the best case scenario, that you'll be deported. The worst case is you will cease to be as a human being.
Oh, sure. Look, why would anybody believe anything the government says? I mean, from the, going back to the 92 elections, one of the things that why George Bush or George Walker Bush lost was that his famous line, "Read my lips, no new taxes," right, that he had promised in the earlier campaign of, what was it, 88? And then you go back and Bill Clinton's elected. "I didn't have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. I smoked, but I didn't inhale." Yeah. And then you look at, George W. Bush, and what was his? Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
And now we have Obama. We're going to be out of Afghanistan by 2014, last campaign promise. And now they're talking about 2024. Oh, I got a 1 wrong. I thought it was a 2, And,
well, and
so why would anybody believe the official story?
Well, just today, and I know that Kerry, there was a deal made with Afghanistan, that those troops are going to remain there past 2024. It's going to be more or less a permanent installment of our troops or maintenance of our troops in Afghanistan. We literally are guarding the biggest industry that Afghanistan has, and that is the production of opium for heroin. And that's what we are, partially what we're doing there. Today on Fox News, I'm hearing the same rhetoric that, oh yes, well, we'll be pulling out of Afghanistan, and what does this mean? We'll be pulling out by 2014. A bald-faced lie.
That's what I'm saying. So why would anybody believe what happened with the Kennedy assassination or anything else? It's one lie, and again, as I said, I'm really, really angry. My anger, and by the way, oh, you shouldn't get angry, people say. Listen, if the gods could get angry, I could get angry too. What's this? Don't be angry. Be a passive little nothing. That's their message when you get angry, because you won't take their crap. And whether it's the militarization of this nation, when the headline is that they're sending B-52s to fly over the disputed Chinese islands in the East China Sea, or whether it's going into Afghanistan and policing the world, that's totally against the foundation of this nation and the founding fathers, as is the militarization of our police force and watching every damn thing we do. This is no different than Nazi Germany.
Well, and you know, I hear Germany brought up all the time. Well, look.
Or Mussolini. Or go over the list
how about
of
Pol
any
Pot?
dictatorship.
How about the guy that we got real cozy with during World War II, Joseph Stalin, which ended up killing what, 60 million of his own people? I find this fascinating. Gerald, I got to say this. I find this fascinating that we keep referring to Adolf Hitler and Joe Stalin made him look like a piker.
Well, yeah, as I said, go through the list. Go through the list of people that have been destroyed by their leaders. And as I said, you just keep building the list. And it's going on right now. You know, I wanted to go out after seeing this Preservation Hall Jazz Band. I had a great time. I was dancing. I had a wonderful time. 12 o'clock, Woodstock is shut down. I'm afraid to have a stinking drink because some slimer is going to pull me over, some tough guy, to intimidate me.
Yeah.
What kind of country is this? I remember going out on Friday, Saturday night. The roads were packed with people. Restaurants and nightclubs were bustling. And they've taken all the joy out of life. You know, it's bad enough you try to earn a living. You have health problems, family problems, love problems. And now you got these strangers out there, whether you call them authorities, politicians, or officials, screwing with your life at every second of it. Who anointed these people?
Well, and this is going to be tough to unravel because we are supposed to have an honest, an honest redress of government or redress with our government. Let me rephrase this. Let me get this right. And it's nothing but lip service. We sit and we watch what this government is doing, and they're wholly responsible and culpable. It is not anybody but the Senate and the Congress and the presidents, all of these years, that have been doing what they have been doing. And as I look at this, the founders, I've read a lot of their writings, and almost to the man that they said, look, this has never been done like this before. And we're going to do the Declaration, you know, we did the Constitution, yeah, we did the first 10 amendments, but that may not be enough. There may come a time where your government turns on you and you have the right. No, you have the obligation and duty, they said. Not just the right, but the duty to dissolve that government and institute a new one that serves the people of this country. Where is it that we cannot follow through with that? And
I'll tell you why. Because the people lack the courage. The people lack the courage. There's not a man or woman in Congress, and you listen to the prostitute media, there's no courage out there.
I don't care about them. Gerald?
And the people.
I'm not going to say that.
Too many of the people.
Well, I get that. But there are too many of us out there that are angry. The problem is that it's not been put together in a constructive manner to work to the end to restore the constitutional republic. What we're doing is we're getting angry in place with no plan of action. And Gerald, I've said this, and I've said this, and I've said this, and I've said this. There is not going to be any restoration. There might be a little mini revolution that lasts all of, I don't know, a couple heartbeats. Because this is still the biggest, baddest military on the face of this planet, if it is ever turned against the American people. And if we keep sitting here hoping that one day that it won't, those men in those ranks, in all branches of service, there will come a day that not one of them will oppose in order to go against the American people. Disarm them, martial law, I don't care what it is, give it a name. Look, we have the will to do it, but we have not come to terms with a mechanism of how to do it. This has to be done through our respective states. This is a confederation, Gerald Celente. It is a confederation. We created the federal government, not the other way around. The federal government didn't create the states. The sovereign states. They did not do that. The states created them. What we need, and I think we've got enough people in every state, even the state that you're in, I think we have enough people to start putting pressure on the state's governors, on the state legislatures, to put an end to this. If need be, demand the dismissal of the 535 creatures that are occupying the District of Criminals, to disband that government, if necessary. And I do believe that it is.
I agree with you, but you're not going to get it through. You're dealing with the Bloods and the Crips.
The Genoveses and the Gambinos. I don't care what game they're running.
But they're not going to. To me, it has to be done. It has to be done in another way.
Okay.
And I believe the way to doing it is with referendum.
Okay. When you say referendum, give me an example of this.
A referendum, for example, to make a referendum. I'll give you one example that's in my mind these days. Is that there should be a disbandment of all political parties. Anyone wanting to represent the people of their district or of their state, the first allegiance should be to the people and not to a party. There should not be party members.
And there should be allegiance and swearing an affidavit to that Constitution of the United States and the respective states. We've got a break. We'll be right back.
World-renowned physician and stem cell expert Dr. David Steenblock, DO, and his research staff have spent years developing all-natural formulations that support the body's own stem cell production and mobilization system. An everyday stem cell supplement, creating the birth of StemGevity. StemGevity stem cell mobilization formula is for use by men, women, and children of all ages to support your body's stem cell system naturally, quickly, and safely. StemGevity helps support your heart and circulatory system, bones and joints, liver, skin, brain, and much more. Order your bottle now at StemGevity.com today. That's StemGevity, StemGevity.com. Or call now toll-free, 800-300-1063. Buy 2 bottles and receive a third bottle free by mentioning RBN. Anyone who wants to get healthy needs StemGevity. Call 800-300-1063 today.
Ground beef, eggs, butter, cheese, soup, sandwiches, strawberries, ice cream, coffee, and more. What do these foods have in common? They all come in storable, long shelf life food for you to save and use in uncertain times. Rather, if it is a meal or a snack, for a family or just yourself, CampingSurvival.com offers a huge variety of storable food for you to be prepared anytime. Go to CampingSurvival.com to order all your food. Eat today, save it for tomorrow, or store it for years to come. CampingSurvival.com sells healthy, nutritious, storable food in number 10 cans and pouches. Order online today at CampingSurvival.com. Use code FREEDOM and receive 5% off. CampingSurvival.com. Remember, save 5% off with code FREEDOM at CampingSurvival.com on all your prepared food needs.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
My name is Don Wiskin. I had a massive heart attack at 42. The doctors could do nothing but send me home with disability as my future. I reversed the damage done to my heart with a natural remedy. I am now 58 and contribute my good health today to Extendovite. You have heard my messages for many years. A lot of people have taken Extendovite and improved their health issues. We are surrounded by fast food, toxic air, and chemicals that our body cannot eliminate. As we age, they can age us faster. Clean yourself out with Extendovite, available in capsule or liquid form. Get a 2-month supply for only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. You can live a longer, healthier life just by calling 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
We are back. We have a few minutes, about 10 minutes left here with Gerald. There's a few things that has to be done. Gerald, this banking, this thing that they call banking in this country, that was set up to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to strip the wealth of this country out. The Fed Reserve, we're commemorating the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's death. November 22nd, 1963. On December 13th of 1913, we had the Federal Reserve, the Emergency Banking Act, foisted upon the American people, starting this fiat currency ripoff. And by the way, this is the very same people that did the Emergency Banking Act. The bill for that also did the bill for the Internal Revenue Service. But the Internal Revenue Service was not to gain notoriety until years later. Because you see, folks, the debt wasn't run up enough, wasn't run up high enough of any consequence. But the bankers knew back then that they wanted some kind of surety for repayment of the debt that they knew that this government would get itself into. Give a drunken sailor a blank check and tell him to go spend. You know, the old story about the drunken sailor, you know, he'll spend until he's out of money, and then he pukes and goes back to his ship. No, well, not if he has a blank checkbook that he can keep writing endless checks. The way I see this, Gerald, the Federal Reserve has to be done away with, but we have to start doing this at state level. Referendum? I don't know if it's too late for referendums or not. But I do know what has to be done. And I think there are men of courage. We are the government. Forget the corporations of the state and the Fed, that they call themselves the government, which really isn't. They're in commercial business. They're in business. They're not in the business of governing and distributing taxation, not how we think of it. They're in business for the sake of doing business. And that's not the government's business to do that. We are the government. We the people in a republic, not this convoluted democracy, fascistic democracy. I don't care, give it a name. But I think the will is out there, Gerald. It's just the mechanism. Nobody has hit upon it yet. I think your frustration, my frustration, millions of us in this country, we want to change. But we have not seen a direct approach on how to do it. And it has to be done. Otherwise, you and me, my friend, are going to be sitting after this country falls and the dust not yet settled. We're going to be talking about what should we have done.
Well, let me just interject for just a moment in that thought, and that is it doesn't have to be done politically. And when you look at one of the greatest revolutions that ever happened that was bloodless, it was the Italian Revolution. And Giuseppe Verdi, who's celebrating his 200th year anniversary, he created his music for one reason primarily and one reason only. And that was to instill within the spirit of the Italian people the courage to overthrow their occupiers. When he died, it was more people turned out to his funeral to date than anybody at any time since that time. And it worked. It was almost a bloodless revolution. Because back in the 1800s, the Austrians had a piece, the Germans had a piece of Italy, the Hungarians, the French, the Spanish. The Neapolitans spoke a different language than the Calabres. His objective was to use the music to unify the nation. What I'm saying, John, is unification, in a sense of a restoration, can happen in a lot of different forms. It doesn't only have to take the political form, which to me is probably the weakest form to take. So I would submit that the power of the culture, what we call pop culture, is probably the most powerful. And that if something started bubbling up, for example, on that level, we could really start seeing a change. Because that's what people tune into. And that's, for example, why all these presidential candidates go on all of these talk shows and sit in with the ladies of The View and on and on and on. And if they could make gangster rap take the most violent aspect of society, the most vicious criminals that you can't give them shoelaces or belts to because they'll kill you with them, if they could turn that into a pop culture statement and destroy the society as they have with the destruction, with what they call music and the message of it, it could be done in a positive way too. So I'm looking beyond the political realm. I don't see that as a viable alternative at this moment.
Well, and I've always referred to politics and how it's done in this country is the absence of the consideration of the Constitution.
Exactly.
There's your political football that you can toss all day long.
Right, and you're not going to get anywhere with it because it's co-opted by the gangs, the political gangs of the Republicans and the Democrats. And you don't break up the gangs. And you're not going to change the gangs. You got to get rid of the gangs. And to me, the way to get rid of them is through a different means, and not through the system that they're controlling, because you're not going to get anywhere with it.
Well, and we saw a couple quick notes here. We saw what happened with Ron Paul's revolution. Okay, this was the reinvention. This is the redux for the Boston Tea Party. And it was wildly successful. He was pulling in people that were going to vote for, they were going to vote for Kerry. They were going to vote for Hillary Clinton. They were going to vote for Barack Obama. They were going to vote for, it doesn't matter who they were going to vote for. They were going to vote for everybody but Ron Paul. Once they heard the man speak and what he was talking about and the solutions to the problems of this country is in the Constitution itself, that changed people's minds.
But what was the end result? The end result was that he was marginalized everywhere and every platform he went on. So when he'd go to all these debates, Ron Paul would be at the end of the line. They'd ask him the least amount of questions and give him the least amount of times. And the next day in the coverage, he got the least amount of coverage.
But the people that saw then, and they wanted to put a man in the White House, which is like just replacing the CEO at McDonald's Corporation.
Exactly.
But that would have been, he could have slowed the Congress's role.
Again, it didn't happen.
I understand.
And it's not going to happen. Look how few votes he got. Again, it doesn't work. We've had enough proof. Unless the person has a lot of money, like a Ross Perot did. And remember, Perot, I was there the day, actually, that Sunday, when we're sitting up in Connally's suite, and we're watching the 60 Minutes when Ross Perot tells Leslie Stahl that one of the reasons he dropped out of the campaign during the summer was that his daughter was getting married. I mean, this guy was a lunatic. And he still got almost 20% of the vote. So it has to be someone with money, someone that doesn't have to depend on the system, and in this age of the Internet, that becomes even more possible.
The point I was trying to make on that was not, I knew that was not a viable solution to elect Ron Paul. But what I'm trying to say to you, Gerald, was it was the passion that was stirred, the re-education of people in the politics. And this is how the government works. We got a constitution, we got voters. Honestly, if they were voted honestly, maybe Ross Perot's numbers would have been different. But my point is that he stirred a nation. And I'm saying that what he stirred up in this country has to be reignited, and do it in the states. How many millions of people in this country want to see a change? And it could become possible through the state legislatures by them saying to Washington, D.C., we're done playing this game with you. You have ruined our economy. You have ruined our country. You've set up a commercialized corporation, an administrative setup, UCC, give it a name. I don't care what different control mechanisms they have. Enough. Because what you're suggesting, there's different ways to go about this, and more people can get involved with what they feel comfortable with. But the point is that it has to start, and it has to start right away. This will end up in courts. This will end up being legal. This will end up being a lot of different things, Gerald. But I can tell you one thing right now, if we don't start doing something, you and I are going to be lamenting the fact that the greatest nation that the world has ever seen, and I'm a little biased, is going to crumble into dust only after 237 years.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Gerald, hey, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
And enjoy your Thanksgiving, and I will see you again soon.
All right, happy Thanksgiving to you and everyone listening.
All right, thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir. Bye-bye now.